Hey guys! Today's video is going to be part 2 of the baby tutorial. If you haven't seen part 1, I'll leave the link in the info box. In this video we are going to be sculpting the body as well as finishing off the baby with some blushing and hair. Hope you'll enjoy. After I'd made and pre-baked the head, I started adding clay to the torso. I prefer working on the upper body or chest area first, but you could do the entire body at once. It's really just a matter of personal preference. At this point I really don't worry too much about dust. I try to keep the front clean, but I always end up with some dust on the back of the head or body. And so after baking it's fairly easy to remove it. You can either use your X-Acto knife to scrape it off, or you can take some alcohol or acetone. And just as in part 1, I'm mainly using the 2 silicone tools. Once again, I do have a tutorial showing how you can make your own. And then I'm using my dotting tools and needle tools. I then rolled out and attached the upper arms before pre-baking. And I did make them a bit thinner than what I wanted because I'll be adding more clay after. I then started working on the hands, and I just took some clay and put it on the tip of needle tool. I first made the palm of the hand and then moved on to the fingers. Make sure that all seams are blended and add a few fine lines just to make the hand a bit more realistic. If you wanted, you could also do kind of the shape of fingernails, but I chose to skip this. Once I was done, I pre-baked both the hands and the baby. Once pre-baked, I added some clay to the hands, which are going to be the underarms, and then attached those to the baby as well. I then added clay to give the arms more shape and added a few lines. After doing this, I pre-baked it again. As I mentioned in part 1, you really don't have to pre-bake it as many times as I am. It's just a matter of personal preference because you can do just 1 or 2 bakes and be just fine. Cut off any excess wire and start working on the lower body. This is also about the time where you start adding private parts to the gender of your baby. I chose to make a girl, so to make it very simple, I basically just did another butt crack. Make the thighs and attach those the same way you did with the upper arms, and start sculpting the feet. After baking, I added some shading using soft pastels. I used both some of the usual pastels I use for my miniature food and then some of my new pan pastels, which I absolutely love. I think the colors I chose from the pan pastels were burnt sienna and permanent red tint, but I could be wrong. You just want a couple of pink shades for the skin tone and then some brown for some contouring. For the body, I applied the pastels dry because the pigment will stick fairly well, and then for the details on the face, I added the pastel with a wet brush. Before adding the rest of the shading, I chose to add the hair, and for this I'm just using some of the merino fibers I use for my animal tutorials. Just apply a thin layer of glue. I'm using Aleene's craft glue, and then add a few fibers. Once you're done, trim it with a pair of scissors, and then I also watered down some of the glue and applied this kind of like a hair gel. It's just a really easy way to style the hair. Lastly, I applied a thin layer of matte glaze to protect the pastel I'd already applied, and then I added more shading, kept doing this, finished off with another layer of matte glaze and then a layer of my Renaissance wax. Hope you'll enjoy, and I'll see you in my next video.